Hey everybody! This is going to be another tutorial that's going to be a revised pattern now that I've learned a lot more, and also I have an HD camera now, so I'm refilming a lot of my tutorials. For this project, it's going to use worsted weight yarn, which is 4-ply for the US, 10-ply for Australia, and also it's going to take 2 sets of hooks. It's going to take a 5mm hook or a size H hook for the US, and also I'll be using a 5.5mm hook or size I. Also, I recommend having a stitch marker or using a small piece of yarn as a different color can also be used to mark a stitch. Also, if you have a Pom Pom Maker, use it, or I have a tutorial that'll show you how to make this and teaches you how to use it to make a pom-pom. This is the one I used to make this pom-pom. There's a link down below that's going to show you how to do that. Also I recommend that you get a tapestry needle. It's really important for when you're sewing your hat and your tails to make sure they don't come out later on. So to begin this hat, it's actually made from the bottom up. So we're going to be starting with the rim. And the rim is bigger than a usual hat. It's like double the size. It was made just to stylize it that way. It's just the way I wanted to do it. It also has crab stitch running along the side, and then this is the moss stitch. So we're going to be starting with our crochet band. If you don't want it this thick, you can easily just make it less at the beginning and then make up for it with the moss stitch later on. Okay, so we're going to be starting with the 5mm hook or size H hook just to make the rim, and then when we make the portion of the hat portion, the moss stitch, we'll be switching hook sizes. So right now, grab your 5mm hook, grab the yarn color that you want to use for the rim of your hat, and then we'll get started. So to begin, you want to chain 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now again, if you want your rim to not be so wide, you want it half the size, then chain only 6 instead of 12. You can have it, or not even 6. You can try 8 if you like. Try to leave it in an even number. What you want to do to start the rim is you're going to be working in the second chain from the hook, and you're going to put a single crochet, and you're going to single crochet down your chain, and at the end of your chain you'll have 11 single crochets. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. When you get to the end of your row, you want to chain 1 and turn. Now we're going to be working with it's going to be our front loops facing us here. So in the front loop only. So you're going to be leaving this back loop alone. So working in that first little loop that you come to here, grab it up and do a single crochet. You're going to single crochet in these back loops or front loops only. Down all of your 11 stitches, and then you'll see that by leaving this other loop alone, it starts to create a pattern on the other side. When you get to the end of your row, chain 1 and turn. See, now it's got this line going down, and it adds a nice effect. So you want to continue to do this, working in your front loops only, down your 11 single crochets, until you have a total of 60 rows of stitches. Okay, now that I got a few rows done, if it's starting to curl a little bit on the end, that's okay, because we're going to be crocheting along the side and it will even out. So don't worry if it starts to curl a little bit. It will curl, so don't freak out about that. Another thing I wanted to show you is you have 2 sides. This one, as you can see, the line is already after 1 row, so there's the row of single crochets, and then you have a line. If you flip it over, you can see that there's 2 rows of stitches before the line, and then 2 rows of stitches for the line. So this can help you count whenever you're making your rows. Make sure you flip it over to where you have 2 rows before the line, and then you can count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and so on and so forth until you can count up to 60. Okay, when you get done with your 60 rows, you want to go ahead and fold your piece in half to where both of your ends are together. And again, you're going to be going through the back loop only on this side, and you're going to try to do your best to go in through just one of the chain stitches on the other side. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just try your best. So go ahead and chain 1 on the end of your row and find that first back loop. Put your hook in it. Then find the opposite stitch on this side and put your hook in that. And then just slip stitch those 2 to connect. Line up your row as best you can, and you're going to be going through again back loop on this side, and then try to go through only 1 stitch on the other side and slip stitch to connect. Make sure that you don't slip stitch sew. I'm calling it sewing. Don't forget to keep your loop tight. Don't slip stitch too tightly, because then it'll pull. So you want to, and how you do that is just by keeping your loop on your hook not being so tight. If it's too tight, pull it up just slightly if you need before you do your next slip stitch. Just keep that area as loose as you can. I know we started with 12 chains, but you're probably, and then we slip stitch in the second, so we go down to 11. So there should be 11 stitches that you sew on the side here as well. If it's a little less, it's okay. Let's count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. I have 11. Sorry about that little part here. I ran out of my yarn. Okay, so now what you want to do is get your hook out of there, and you want to turn where this now, which is the sewn side, will be on the inside of the hat. So wait, I should do it like this. There. Do it that way, don't fold inside. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now I just gotta find my hook again. I mean my loop. There's my loop. There we go. Okay. So you're going to stay with the same yarn for this next row, and you're going to stay with the same hook for this next row. And we're going to be working in the side stitches here. Let me get closer. So go ahead and start by chaining 1. And now, if you can see these 2 rims, these 2 spaces, we're going to be working with 2 stitches in between each one of these. So you're going to be doing the same as you did before, where you're going 2 by 2 by 2. Here in the very first place that we just sewed is kind of like in the middle. So we're going to count this first single crochet as 1, but we're going to end, when we get all the way around, our second one will finish this section. And you did 60 rows, and you should have 60 stitches here. So I'm going to go into this very first stitch, which is right next to where I slip stitched, and I'm going to single crochet. Now I'm going to move over to my next section, which is right in between here. Wait a minute, I ran right into that section. So this is part of this. It's weird because it's sewn. Okay, I'm just going to go into that same one again like I was saying. Okay, so in here I'm going to put just 1 on this section. So right now we have 2, because sometimes it doesn't equal up to 60 and you have to make a little bit of adjustment. So right now I'm going to let this slide and count this whole section as 2. So now we're in our new section. We have 2 stitches we'll be looking for. One is just separated by 1 little string, and the other one is going under the stitch, the single crochet stitch here on the side, and you can just pull it up and see that first hole right here. So we're going to be using this hole and this hole. So I'm going to go into the first one, first stitch, single crochet, then I'm going to go under the next stitch, single crochet. And we're going to be working this all the way around. So again, our next section, we have this first one, which is just a little single yarn, and then we're going to go under the stitch of the next. So now that section's done. Now we're going to continue doing 2 single crochets worked in each section all the way around. So continue working in your side stitches in that manner, and I'll see you when you get to the very end of your row. Okay, I just got to putting my last single crochet in my very last section here. Then I counted my stitches all the way around. Be careful not to count your beginning chain. Start with the beginning stitch, count all the way around, make sure that you have 60, and I do. So once you have 60, I still have this little gap here in my chain, so I'm going to skip all that, and I'm going to go right into my very first single crochet of my row, and I'm just going to slip stitch in the top of that stitch. Then this is where you want to cut your yarn. Leave yourself a bit of a tail so you can work that in later. And grab the color that you want to use for the main portion of your hat. And you also want to, let me make sure, yeah, you want to change your hook size this row. So when you change the color, you also want to change the hook size. How I'm going to change colors is I'm just going to grab up my new yarn and slip it through my loop. Then you can pull your old yarn, grab that tail, pull it to tighten it, and then if you want you can grab your old tail, your 2 old tails, and tie a bit of a knot just to give yourself a little security if you feel like you need it, so that your yarn won't come loose. Okay, once you have your new color, we're going to be working what's called the crab stitch, and it's essentially just like a single crochet, but you're going to be working it backwards. And to do that, go ahead and chain 1. That way it'll give you a little bit more movement here. You want to find your very first stitch, which is going to be the stitch we just slip stitched into. So I'm going to go ahead and go through, and you can use your hook like a little grabber if you want. Grab up that very first stitch, put your hook through it, grab up your yarn. You have 2 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through, just like you would a single crochet. Now you want to continue this down your row. So again, you're only going to be going through one of the loops, so only the front loops, leaving the back loops alone. So use your hook to grab up that very first post, and then grab up yarn, pull through both of the loops. Again, grabbing up that first stitch, then grab your yarn, pull through both. So when you pull, the trick to this to make it look correctly is when you pull up your loop, you just want to go ahead and just go through. Your loop will be on the hook side. Your new color is on the back side when you go in. If you go in like this, trying to keep it like this, for some reason it just doesn't look right. So you actually have to grab it up, push your hook forward into that stitch, then pull up a loop and pull through. So don't try to be crafty and pick it up and then stay in the front like that. You want to pick it up and just push it on through. And that's how you're going to create this look here. So pick it up with your hook, push your hook through, pick up the new color, and create your single crochet. It's much easier too doing it this way than just trying to grab it and put your hook between. So trust me, it's much easier and the stitch looks correct like that. If not, you're going to get a regular looking single crochet that you did. So you did all this work to go backwards for nothing. So you definitely want to pick it up, push your hook through, then grab your yarn. Just want to do a few here so you can see what it looks like. You can see it start having that wrap look, And then the back, you can see that you are leaving this other loop, this other loop alone. These are the loops that we're going to be using next row. So go ahead, take your time, do your crab stitch all the way around, and I'll see you whenever you get done. Okay, I'm just getting to the end of my row here. Okay, and you don't really have to count these stitches. I mean, you can count every little bump and whatnot, but it doesn't really matter because you're not going to be using these stitches again. So just get it to where a point where it looks good, and then you can come over here where your very first color begins and just find a place to grab into this new color, or near as you can to it, and slip stitch just to kind of keep the color going, and then chain one. Now we're going to be working in the back stitches, the back loops, the ones that we didn't use last time, and we're just going to be putting a single crochet in each one of those. So you're going to be using your thumb a lot to pull down that row so that you can have those back stitches pop up on you. So go ahead and fold it down right now. Find the very first front loop, which is for me right here, and I'll do a single crochet. Continue to go down your row. Make sure you do this, you know, slowly. Don't be in a rush. Soon this hat will get super easy, so you can do it while you watch something. But for these 2 rows, you really need to take it slow. This one's not so bad once you get going. You can see how the back loops pop up. When I first designed this hat, I wanted to do something different in every section that I'd never seen before. So I did my border sideways. I made this border here separate because I just learned the crab stitch. I was just throwing everything that I had just learned into one hat with this really cool moss stitch that I found. But the moss stitch also has to be worked back and forth in rows, which means you're going to have to turn your hat after every row when we start the moss stitch. I think I marked this hat as being intermediate, but I hope through the tutorial I can make it easy. I hope you just mastered the crab stitch, and if you've never done the crab stitch before and you just were able to do it, congratulations. Good job on you for your stick-to-itiveness, how you say it? And learning that stitch, because it really is cool, and it hides the crochet look, and you can use it as a border on an afghan, stuff like that. It would really be cool, especially in this way, using it only in one stitch and then behind adding like maybe shells or something like that. It would give a really nice border to something. So it's really important this row that you have the stitches, because we're starting the moss stitch next, that you have the correct number of stitches, because we're starting the moss stitch that takes multiples of 2. And for the sizing, I wanted this to be about 60. With acrylic yarn, it stretches so it can fit in adults, and at this size with the 60 chains, it fits kids too. So this size should fit pretty much everyone, unless you have just a huge head, or a big head. Sorry, I don't mean to insult anyone. Okay, so you really want to make sure that you stop and count your stitches all the way around. If you have 60 to begin with, then you should have 60 now. So stay consistent. Okay, wanted to count my stitches off camera. So I have 59, so I'm short 1. Oh, there it is. Didn't see this one back here. There, 60. Okay, so once you have your correct number of stitches, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slip stitch in the very first stitch of the row, and then that will end the row. And I know I have my 60 stitches, so I'm ready to go ahead and begin the moss stitch. The moss stitch just consists of doing 2 stitches, the slip stitch and the half double crochet. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 1, and I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to go right into that same stitch that I slip stitched in, and I'll pull up a loop. 3 loops on my hook for my half double crochet, pull through all 3 of the loops to finish the half double crochet. And you're going under both loops, by the way, this row. So go into your next stitch and then slip stitch by just pulling up a loop, pulling through the loop on your hook. Now you're going to do a half double crochet, and then the next stitch, slip stitch. And you're going to continue your half double crochet, slip stitch, all the way down your row. So go ahead and keep doing that all the way down your row, and I'll see you when you get to the end of the row. Okay, I'm just finishing it in my row. Got my half double crochet and then slip stitch. I know the slip stitch is the end of my row because I began my row with a half double crochet. You're going to slip stitch in the first half double crochet of the row, and that will end your row. And I'm going to count this row that we just did as row 3. I'm counting from the first time you switched your color and we did the crab stitch, that was row 1. Then your row of single crochets was row 2. Then your first row of moss stitch is row 3. So now we're on row 4. For row 4, you want to go ahead and chain 1, and you want to turn your work. You don't have to turn the whole thing inside out. You can if you want, but it can get a little tiring to have to switch it inside out, but you may have to when the hat gets bigger. Okay, so we slip stitch into our half double crochet. So we know that our very first stitch of the row is going to be a slip stitch. So we're going to not count this very first one because we essentially just did it by slip stitching in the half double crochet. So working this way, our very first stitch, which is this one here, is going to be a half double crochet. So find that very first or the very next stitch from where you slip stitched and do a half double crochet in that stitch. Now you can see from your, probably better on your own work than you can mine, but you have this little area here in front, this little stitch here, that is not part of the stitch. That is created when you do a slip stitch. If you turn your work just a little bit, you'll see that the actual stitch will pop out. See, it's like it's disguising it just a little bit with this little loop. That's part of the moss stitch, but there, this is your actual stitch. And you're going to be going under both of those loops of your stitch, leaving this first one alone that's in front, and you'll slip stitch. Then the very next stitch, half double crochet. The next one, slip stitch. Then half double crochet. Also another tip is if you notice that your stitches kind of go in a wave, like they sink down just a little bit, like mini V's. And just remember on the upper side of the V where you see this little extra thing in front of it, that is where you're always going to slip stitch. You're always going to slip stitch when you have that extra little stitch out in front. You'll go into that one and slip stitch. And the ones that look like a regular old stitch, you'll be doing half double crochet in there. It'll get more prominent later whenever you have done it for a while. You'll start to be able to see it. Okay, I'm getting closer to the end of my row. Slip stitch. Oh yeah, I forgot. At the very beginning of my row, here you can still see it. where I did the chain, and I want to mark this stitch real quick before I forget and get too far away. This is just the first row, so this is the time. Guess you can mark it either way because you're going to be flip-flopping back and forth. Here it kind of has a ridge, but this isn't exactly where your first stitch is. This, where you slip stitched here, is, see, I slip stitched here, I chained one, so I'm going to go right underneath that and I'm going to put my stitch marker there. Attach my stitch marker. So I did a slip stitch in the very beginning stitch, though I did a half double crochet. So I'm ending with a half double crochet here, and this is also a half double crochet. So I'm going to end on the half double crochet, and I'm going to go ahead and find my original chain space here, and I'm going to slip stitch to end my row into that chain space there, and then chain one. And remember, you want to turn your work, which is weird for a hat. Flip my stuff over here, and again, since we slip stitched in this very first stitch, wait a minute, yeah, trying to find my little extra, yeah, here, this is your little extra. Okay, so we slip stitched in the very first stitch, so the very first stitch needs to be the opposite. It needs to be a half double crochet. So right in this stitch where we slip stitched, I'm going to yarn over and put a half double crochet right into that first stitch. Now the very next stitch will be a slip stitch, and then half double crochet, then slip stitch. Then you want to continue this all the way around just like you did before, being careful not to go into that free stitch. And I'll show you, once I've done a few more rows, I'll show you a little easier how to count. But you're going to be wanting to do it for a total of 14 rows. Okay, I'm getting to the end of my row, and I started with a half double crochet, so I want to end with a half double crochet because when I do the slip stitch to end the row, the slip stitch will end the row, and it'll be my slip stitch that I need for my very last stitch, the one that belongs in between the two half double crochets. So when you get done with your last half double crochet of your row, find the first half double crochet of your row and slip stitch, which will create the slip stitch that you need and end the row. So now again, you want to chain and turn. Flip your work inside out. And remember, right where you slip stitched, very first stitch of the row will need to be a half double crochet to begin your row. And then you just continue on, slip stitch, half double crochet, and you'll do that every single row. So you should always be ending on a half double crochet with slip stitching in your beginning half double crochet to end your row, and then chain one, turn your work, and in that stitch that you just slip stitched in, you'll do a half double crochet in it. And you want to continue this for a total of 14 rows, and when it gets bigger I'll show you how to count it. Okay, I just got done with my 14th row, and I wanted to show you before how to count. Now you can clearly see the texture, and you can see here where you did your row of single crochets worked into the other color. So we're not going to count that row, we're going to go up one row, count 1, 2, where you have the stick out stitch, then the next one up 3, 4, which is a stick out stitch. So now you know that this is 2, 4, you can go 6, and every time you go up to the next bump it's 8, 10, 12, 14. So this last one here is row number 14. So I went ahead and I did an extra one than I was supposed to. Not that it's not that big a deal. I was just getting into it. Okay, I'm back up one. Okay, now I've got a complete total of 14 rows done. Make sure that you have this facing you, the good side facing you. So when you're ready to begin your decreasing once you have your 14 rows done. You want to start by doing 1 single crochet in 3 stitches and then do a single crochet decrease. So we're going to start with that very first stitch, and you're going to do a single crochet. Then in the next stitch, single crochet, the next stitch, single crochet. 3 single crochets in a row. Now we're going to do our single crochet decrease, so go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn through, pull through all 3 loops. And then you'll repeat that for the row, putting 1 single crochet in the next 3 stitches, and then doing a single crochet decrease using the next 2 stitches. So continue that all the way down, all around your row. Sorry about that, I was about to sneeze before. Okay, I'm just ending my last decrease at the end of my row, and the next row you're going to do the same thing you just did, only you're going to be doing 2 single crochets before you do a decrease instead of the 3 single crochets like we did last time. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm at the end of my row, but I'm not going to slip stitch in the beginning stitch. I'm just going to start working it as decrease. So I want to go ahead and get my stitch marker. Okay. So now I'm going to go right into this very first stitch and do a single crochet. And I'm going to do 2 single crochets in a row. And then I'm going to do my single crochet decrease. Do 2 single crochets in a row. And then do your single crochet decrease. And you want to continue this all the way down your row. It's the second row of reducing. So continue that, and I'll see you when you get to the end of your row. Okay, I'm getting close to the end of my row. I got my single crochet decrease, and then I got 1 more stitch to end the row, and then continue. But since I'm doing this in one continuous round, once you do your last decrease here and you're getting close to reaching the end, go ahead and we'll start the next row of decreasing, which is 1 single crochet in the next and then 1 double crochet decrease. So now we're only going to put 1 double crochet, and then we'll automatically do our, not automatically, then we'll just do our double crochet decrease. So single crochet 1, then do your double crochet decrease, and continue that all the way around. Okay, I just did my last decrease for the row. I guess I'm just going to do my 1 single crochet there, which brings me closer to the end. Okay, so for the next 2 rows, all you're going to do is single crochet decrease. So go ahead and put 1 single crochet decrease. Do 1, I keep saying 1 when you need 2 stitches. Do a single crochet decrease using 2 stitches as you were doing before, all the way around, and then when you get to your marker, go ahead and do that 1 more time, putting 1 single crochet decrease all the way around, and then I'll show you how to finish up. Okay, when you get done, you should have just this little hole left. Go ahead and slip stitch in your next stitch and chain 1. Then you want to go ahead and cut your yarn, leaving a little bit longer of a tail, and pull that through. Just go ahead and pull your loop out. And I can take my stitch marker out again. Now I want to turn my hat inside out and feed this through the center so that you have it on this side. And this is where your tapestry needle comes in. I have so many different ones, so many different sizes here. I keep in my little flower, my little pin cushion. It was just some flour I had left over. Oh, I remember where that's from. I have a sunflower granny square, not granny square, that too, but sunflower bookmarker. Okay. So when you get on this side of it, find where your yarn is attached, which mine's here. You want to go into that. Let me get a little closer here for you. This is where my string is popping out. So you'll go into the very next stitch, then come up through the very next one, then do the same, go in through the next stitch, come out through the next. I'm going to go ahead and pull my yarn through. keep doing this all the way around. Go down, go up, go down, go up till you reach your original. And then all you gotta do is pull your yarn to tighten up the hole. And then now, once you've done that, you can just kind of hide your tail a little bit down your project. Go one way, go another way a few times. And then I just like to come up one more time, but not pull my yarn all the way through. You can put your thumb there if you need. Come through this as well. You can do that a few times if you like. And this last time here, I'm going to grab my actual loop and then use the loop and what's left to tie a knot. And that's it. You can use your tapestry needle to hide any yarn that you have just floating around and create your pom-pom. And I have a link down to the pom-pom video if you need. So that's it, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please don't forget to like and share and comment down below. It helps me out so much. Also, if you want to know whenever I release a new tutorial, you can click that little bell button next to the subscribe button on my main YouTube page and always be notified when I release a new tutorial. Also, if you wanted to know the hook that I was using to make the rim, this is a wooden furls hook. You can find the link down below this video as well if you're interested in getting yourself one of those. Also, I have a Facebook group called Crochet for the Masses. I'd love to see you there. We share pictures of projects we just did. We share links to free patterns that we found. We ask questions, and you can find lots of help there. I really hope that we see you there. Thanks so much for watching.